still in pieces, as you can see. I swear to God, this time around, this project has been nothing but a pain in the ass. No, in all honesty, I don't mind there being conflicts with this build, because every time I overcome a conflict, it arms me for the future to be able to overcome these issues if they arise, and be able to handle them a little bit faster than I'm handling them this time. The ASRock Beatbox N3000B sets a new standard for desktop miniaturization. With its super mini sleek form factor, it seamlessly fits into any tight space, and powered by the Intel N3000 2.08 GHz processor, USB Type-C, wireless 801.11 AC Wi-Fi, and 4K playback mean the Beatbox from ASRock may be small, but packs a serious punch. Click the link in the description to find out more. So what's holding it back today, and why you guys haven't seen much of an update, is because of the fact that you guys know we were waiting on the 1080s. We got the 1080s a couple weeks ago, actually, just now getting a chance to start working on this. But now we're seeing an incompatibility here with the tubing, and I'm going to show you guys that right now. So what you see right here is a piece of 13mm glass tubing. And yeah, it seems pretty unextraordinary, if you will, nothing special about it. This is a piece of 13mm PETG tubing. We'll put that right next to it. And what you see right here is a 13mm rigid compression fitting from Primo Chill. So that's the base, there's the O-ring that goes in there, and then of course here's the compression top. Now when you put your 13mm PETG in there, fits fine. Actually you gotta do the O-ring, but you know what I mean. It fits fine like that. Then the compression fits right over that. You clamp it down and all is good. Well, when I went to do the glass tubing, I can show you here. The first thing I noticed is the tubing does not fit inside of the compression right there. And I thought, okay, well, I guess maybe the compression is a little bit smaller than the 13mm advertised, so it has a tight fit. Okay, so I took my caliper tool and I wanted to measure what that opening was to make sure that it wasn't the fittings fault, that it wasn't fitting. Get it? The fittings fault. It wasn't fitting. And it actually measured 12.87 millimeters, so just slightly smaller. But that wasn't an issue because, as you can see, the 13mm PETG fits through there just fine. So then I went on to measuring the glass tubing here. As you can see, it is measuring in at 13.18. And it varies a little bit throughout the tube where you measure. I want to measure. See, that one right there is 13.30 at the end. At the very end right there, it measures 13.29. So it's not perfectly straight, and it's much larger than the 13mm as advertised. So I was like, well, you know what, that's not a big deal. I'll just sand down all the compression fitting openings and then we'll be good. Unfortunately, that's not going to work, because here's the problem. If you look inside the fitting right there, it's channeled at that same measurement as the opening of the compression. So I would have to bore out all of these. The problem is, once I start boring that out, I want to make sure I don't get any leaks or anything. And the other issue was, because there's only one O-ring on these compressions that hold everything together, there's no inner O-ring inside here. It's just this one that squeezes against this cambered, or this chamfered face right here. Then you get a lot of flex in the lines. Now this is PETG, so of course there's a little bit of extra flex, but there's a lot of flex. So we just don't want to take the chance. So the owner of Red Mist has pretty much said, fine, ditch the glass, just go with PETG and get it done. And I'm like, okay, fine, PETG is easy, I can get it out of here quick. I've only got to do 2 bends. The only 2 bends I've actually got to do are this guy right here, so it's a 90, 90, and then a 90 into the CPU, and then this bend right here is always the hardest. Every time I've ever done this bend, this is the hardest. But anyway, then he's going to use these fittings that he's not using on his friend's build, so yeah. Anyway, we can start to wrap this up now. But yeah, that's what's been taking so long. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm just gonna try and get these 2 bends taken care of, get the blocks put on the GPUs, and then this thing will be closer to done. Once I get the lighting installed, then I just have to do the wiring, and she's done. Man, it took way too long. One other thing I wanna mention real quick too is, because I know someone's gonna ask, since I have glass tubing in the build in the corner back there, that's the Nano S build, Jay, why don't you just use 12mm tubing in the bits power fitting, since you know they're going to work? One, I personally feel that 12mm in a case this big is going to look way too small. 12mm looks small in that Nano S, so I don't want to imagine how small it's going to look in this case. I think the tubing will look undersized given the size of the case. 2, that means buying all new fittings for the upper, and fittings that run about $10 to $12 a piece. And then he's going to need the elbows for them, and he's going to need the compressions. That adds up to a couple $100 worth of fittings on top of everything he's already purchased, plus having to buy new glass. So this just really turns into a cost savings now. It's like, okay, do the PETG, we know it's shatter resistant. I can actually polish it up, and I've been doing some polishing here with the Plastex. I use it on the cars, like headlights and stuff, but it works really good on the PETG, so it can get out those micro scratches and just kind of the dullness that PETG has. So once you polish it, it actually looks really, really good once it's done. In fact, I polished this bottom tube right here, as you can see, and it's pretty shiny. Yeah, compared to the other tubes up here, like you can kind of see just how dull, I don't think it's gonna focus on, but this tube right here is kind of dull, especially compared to the bottom one, which I've already polished up. So I think it's gonna look good at the end. Well, there's the first tube done, first try, no wasted pieces. I think that turned out pretty darn good, if you ask me. Now we just gotta do this guy. I swear, I don't know what it is about this bend, but Skunkworks had it in all of its revisions. The first Red Mist had something similar, and this, I always like take 5 tries to get this one. I think it's because of how close together the bend radius is. I don't know, let's see. All right, so there is the tubing right there. This took 3 tries, and I know it looks kind of rounded on camera right there. The problem is, with how close together those two 90s are, so you can see on the bottom there. When you heat up one of these bends, and then you go to heat up the next bend, the heat will make its way to the other bend and start to relax it. So it's hard to keep it as a nice, tight 90-degree radius, or a 90-degree bend. But I think it turned out pretty good, actually. It could be worse. But yeah, so there's those 2 bends right there. Now I can put the blocks on the cards and get those in there. And then this thing is a lot closer to being done. And the closer this thing gets to being done, the closer I get to start my build. One thing I want to point out too is I get this an awful lot in my videos where I show these bends that come from the CPU block and go over top of the RAM. From this angle, people say, how are you going to get the RAM out? You can't get the RAM out with the tubes right there. It's just a perspective thing. As you can get underneath it, you can see there's lots and lots of room to get the RAM out. I just wanted to point that out. I mean, I can get my whole hand in there. That's what she said. Anyway, yeah, so I think it's looking pretty darn good, if you don't say so myself. All right, this is where I'm stopping. It's late now. It's like 11:11 at night. We're working on this thing all day. So I changed this one up here a little bit. As you can see, I've now got 2 90s right here, so it comes up along the side of the reservoir, so I have more room here for the wires. We'll talk about these wires in a second here. So at 90s here, and then at 90s into the CPU. Same with this guy right there. I had to redo the part here with the graphics cards a couple times because I had the spacing wrong. I had it in PCIe 1 and PCIe 3, and that's incorrect. I technically it would have worked, but with the 40-lane CPU, if I go PCIe 1 and PCIe 4, then I get 16x and 16x, which is what we want. So I had to redo the link for that. I had to redo this one right here, and then I had to put it back because I ended up putting this back down to where it was originally. And yeah, that's, so pretty much this is exactly how it is for like 3-way, only there would be another card right here in the middle. So really I could have just left the top and the bottom one where they were. I thought I had to change the layout, but I didn't. So anyway, that's how it looks. I want to talk about these wires here real quick. Believe it or not, with there being less wires here on the 1080, because it's only got a single 8-pin and not an 8-pin and a 6-pin, it's actually harder to train these wires because there's less bulk or cluster to keep together, if that makes sense. So these kind of want to go their own way. But I'm going to start training the cables to get them to lay how I want. I probably will have to use some zip ties to control that. But the most important part is that the loop is done. Now, one thing I want to point out, so many people are always asking me like, Jay, how do you do your bends and stuff? I'm not perfect. I'm not. I tried something different where it came up the back and I wanted it to be out of the way of the RAM a little more. The owner didn't like that as much, so I went back this way, and then I changed this one here. This bend right here took me all those tries. Yeah. So I keep these scraps because these aren't actually throwaways, because they're still perfectly good, and they're all 90-degree bends, as you can see. So there might end up being a portion in the future with other builds where I need just a 90-degree bend, and then I can cut them down to length and then use them somewhere. So I keep these, as well as all of these short scraps, as you can see here, all of the short pieces, because all of this stuff is usable. It's not throwaway. So I make sure I don't scratch them up and mar them up and whatnot. So anyway, yep, there's that. I'm going to, this is a standard bridge. This is not the high bandwidth bridge, but I'm going to be using the high bandwidth bridge, or the standard bridge top instead of the high bandwidth, if that makes sense. This piece right here, if you undo these two screws, it will come off. And then this one will mount directly to the EVGA high bandwidth bridge that we're going to be using. And I want to paint this. The problem with the high bandwidth one is it has like a little logo thing here, like a little carbon fiber looking thing, like on the front of their new graphics cards. And I won't be able to paint it with that on there. So I'm going to paint this white, take off the SLI sticker, paint this white, and then I'm going to put this cover on his high bandwidth one. In fact, I don't even think I have it out here. Nope, I don't. That's more of his stuff right there. But anyway, yeah, my shop is a disaster. Absolutely a disaster. But that's one of the reasons why I'm happy to have a shop like this, is because now I can just roll down the door and go to bed. So that's that. This is the second to the last video for the Red Mist build, because the next thing to do, now that the loop is done, is to get all the wiring in and then do our leak testing. And then it will be done and off to the owner's house, and then I can get started on my builds. This one took way longer than it ever should have. Doesn't help that it's summer and it's really freaking hot out here. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed these build vlogs. Remember, Red Mist, some people comment like Red Mist and Skunkworks are too much alike. Remember, Red Mist was first. Skunkworks was second. Actually, first was Sneff's Bloody Vampire build. But anyway, yeah, so Red Mist has some things taken away from some of Sneff's build. Skunkworks has some ideas taken from Red Mist. And Red Mist, once again, is acting as kind of a canvas that I can use to make sure that when I go to do Skunkworks, I'm more efficient with it. So unfortunately for him, it takes longer to get his build done because I'm figuring out all of these things, like the tubing didn't fit and all of that, which means that when I go to do my build, I'll be much more prepared. Thanks for being the guinea pig, dude. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the vlogs, and I'll see you in the next one.